All right. Well, we called this panel the $1 trillion question, but doesn't that really understate the challenge that we faced? Creating good jobs isn't just about money, it's about political stability, global income equality, maybe even about whether we or the computers are in charge. So, Minister Littorin, why don't we start with you? Tell me, why is our ability to create more good jobs so central to our future?
Well, I think really it's quite easy to answer. There are two good reasons. One is, of course, that we need every single hand on deck if we're going to be able to afford everything that we need to afford, schools, healthcare, education, what have you. And secondly, of course, it's because if we want to have an inclusive society where people feel that they are needed and a part of building the future, we need to not only have jobs, but we need to have the good jobs. The jobs that are productive, but also meaningful to people.
All right. Anybody else want to comment on that big picture? Do we want to go and talk about China? Because I know that China, some countries seem to have cracked this code. Job creation remains at the heart of China's economic strategy, despite its slowing growth. So, Donald, give a sense.
Well, the way that we create a job is to use technology to digitize all of the different small and medium-sized companies. And we put them all together on the software, and everything is seamless. They're all working together from the transportation, raw material, the workers. So we eliminate a lot of these human interaction, and they're all kind of weaving together. So we created about 1 million jobs just on the factories alone. But as an engagement company, owning no assets, we work with the delivery people, warehouse people, as well as payment system, marketing platforms. So the kind of amplifying of that job creation is endless.
Interesting. Okay. Talk to me a little bit, Tyler, about what Citi has done, because I know that you're across the world, you operate in different cultures. Talk about the kinds of jobs you're creating, what the strategy is.
Sure. Citi's been in business for 210 years and have seen a lot of cycles, and we're in 100 countries physically and about 160 clients, different countries. And so we have a view of economic development. Our mission is really to help and enable economic growth. And I think we're in a challenging period of time right now, but we're optimistic over the longer run. The areas that we're excited about job growth are topics that have come up today. Obviously, and fits with Donald's discussion, technological advancement and what's going on in things like AI, quantum computing, all the things that are going on in financial technology, we're excited about. $14.5 trillion between now and 2030 expected just from AI alone, creating new jobs. Second theme that we see a lot of job creation on is at the center of FII and energy transition, right? We've all talked, the numbers are enormous. We're seeing lots of opportunity in that space, and we see that as obviously the most sustainable trend of our lifetimes, and it obviously comes with an existential opportunity. A third area that we're excited about is the future of healthcare. Now, overlaying all three of those are two different dimensions that could be helpful. One is entrepreneurialism is going global, and that opportunity to move from Silicon Valley in places where entrepreneurialism is today is exciting because that's going global. And then the last area is the reskilling opportunity is not only important for good jobs, but we think is going to create a growth ecosystem for more jobs, for jobs.
Interesting. Gaston, let's bring you in, because I know that you work with a lot of different kinds of entrepreneurs, small individual businesses. Talk about what you see in terms of the secret sauce, the secret for creating good jobs.
So for this beautiful weather of today in Miami, I have good news for all of you. I mean, the world, if you think, is about $100 trillion GDP, right? And in the US only, $23 trillion GDP economy, 7.5% already of the GDP is retail online commerce. I'm thinking about Americas, which is Latin America is about $6 trillion GDP economy, 1.5% only is retail online. So if you look at the world, the opportunity is huge. Let me connect this concept. We see that at some point the world, more the US, maybe more Japan, maybe more G7, but in average, 10% of the global GDP is going to be online. So think about this for the next 10 years. We're talking about 2% growth GDP, let's say, out of pandemia. It's $120 trillion GDP. 10% is $12 trillion. This is the transfer from offline GDP to digital GDP. What do we need for this to happen? And this I'm going to connect to my grandmother. My grandmother used to tell me, if you don't study, you don't go to college, you're not going to be anybody in life. So then you go to elementary school, high school, college, and then you're going to enter in a job, so basically you spend 17 years. Today is not what you know, it's what you can do for me. And I think that fundamentally is changing for someone sitting in Myanmar, which is a $2,000 or $1,200 GDP economy a year, or $60,000 in the US. So think about for a minute, $10 trillion GDP economy from offline to online, and what we need to teach people. And if we have policymakers here, raise your hand, you are responsible for this, which is, we need to teach people in elementary school, high school, and universities, coding, cybersecurity, digital marketing. With these three things, I was telling you, let's teach less history.
Which sent me into paroxysms.
Okay, in my school, they gave me seven hours per week history. What do I need 7 hours per week? Teach me coding or geography. Teach me coding today. Teach me cybersecurity. Teach me everything else and get me ready to serve this transfer from offline GDP to digital GDP. And I just finished with this. What we are doing, and I'm not selling anything here, but we are right now educating 100,000 people in the world in digital marketing. In how long? 3 to 4 months. So we need people in payments. We need people in cybersecurity. We need people who understand coding. We need people who understand logistics. And that transfer is like a revolution. This is a revolution, and that's what's going to create 1, 2, 10, 15, 25 million jobs. We are certifying people in Myanmar. They understand how to do advertising on Twitter, on Snapchat, on TikTok, or in Meta. And suddenly, that person in Myanmar, $1,200 GDP economy, can be serving and advertising in the UK or in the US. So the world now is a flat world again, and everybody can participate.
All right, Josh, what would you like to pick on? There's a couple of points there that Gaston made. By the way, anybody study history in university? Anybody major in history? All right, nobody's going to be coming for it. You did.
Yeah.
All right.
I actually, to some extent, disagree with some of that, because I think what we've seen is there are certain skills that you need. You need people who know how to build things. And at least, obviously, ChatGPT and all of the latest advancements that we've seen in the last few weeks maybe have put a wrench into that a little bit. But at the end of the day, we work with a lot of auto companies, aviation companies, manufacturing companies. Those jobs are not going to be replaced in the near future by a robot, by an algorithm, by a machine. At the end of the day, there's a very skilled worker who knows their job. What technology can do, and what it has been doing, is enabling them to do their jobs better. So the idea that these people, which is the concern often, need to go back to school and learn and upskill and reskill. Most of our parents and grandparents are on Facebook. These tools nowadays are very user-friendly. So what we've seen, especially in the auto market, is put a tool that is user-friendly in the hands of someone on the shop floor, listen to their feedback about what their actual problems are, how to solve them, and you'll see that things like AI, computer generation, automation, hive mind are having a huge impact in creating efficiencies in manufacturing and other places. And we still need a lot of people to go and get the PhDs in cybersecurity and coding. But at the end of the day, you need the people who know how to build the things. I had the privilege of working for Richard Atias. I am not worried at all he's going to be replaced by an AI machine. That's not happening. That's not possible. There are certain skill sets that people have and you can't replace. I think it's enabling them to not be afraid and to harness technology to make them do their jobs in a better and more efficient way. And I think that's the big misconception right now.
Interesting. I wonder if what you think, Sven, about what the skills and qualifications will be most in demand
Well, to be honest, adaptability is probably one of the most important skills. I mean, being able to adapt to a fast-changing environment.
How do you teach that? How do you teach adaptability?
Well, I think you can actually, because you look at what happened. This is our 10th industrial revolution in one sense, right? Where we've had all kinds of changes. If you look at the agricultural sector, in Sweden 150 years ago, we had 98% of our population working in agriculture, basically the same amount of arable land around, and we produced less than a tenth of what we do today with 2% of the labor force. I mean, it's a huge productivity growth, and that's exactly what it is. Productivity growth is the single most important factor for overall growth over time. So let's focus on how to get those productive jobs, and let's see how we can work on having people being a part of that. And a part of that is actually hope. It's about looking, I remember, I have to tell you the story. I was in the middle of nowhere in Sweden, met a number of college dropouts. And these kids, 16, 17, they were high school dropouts. And they were really sort of like that. And I talked to them and said, listen, we really need you on the labor market because we need you to be out there and be productive and participate in what we're doing. And one of the girls looked at me and said, wow, no one's ever told me I was needed. So I think that's a part of the answer, having this sense of we need everybody on board because otherwise we won't cope. And in order for that to happen, you need to be more adaptable, and you can train that for sure. And it's all about doing things a bit better than you did yesterday. It's not only the revolutionary sort of innovations, it's the incremental innovations, doing things a little bit better than yesterday.
And I do think, sorry, just to jump on that for a second, I do think there is a group of people who can be replaced and will be replaced, and that is more along the professional services class. Because that is, and it's no secret, we publicly did a small round of layoffs recently at Palantir. I can assure you that no skilled engineers, to your point, were part of that group. It was basically, okay, yes, we don't want to do any of this, we have to do it, but the first people to go are the people who can be replaced by outsourced technology and other things. So making yourself indispensable, I would say, in whatever field, is much more important than figuring out the next greatest technological achievement.
Right. Right.
One observation I have is I come from a country, the world champion country, soccer, Argentina. Sorry, I had to. You want to clap, you can clap. But
that's a job.
I mean, they told me to say that. But it's a $500 billion GDP economy. Guys, think about Argentina. I know our Minister of Economy is going to be here soon. Argentina is a country that in the 40s, the 50s, is been serving the need for food. This is soy. About 20–30% of the GDP of the country. Today, nowadays, in my country, they're looking at the weather conditions, if it's going to rain or not. That cannot be any longer. We cannot depend on whether it's going to rain anymore. The point here is what we call the digital soy. The world needs millions and millions of people who understand everything connected to this transfer, this phenomenon that is happening, the transfer from offline GDP to digital GDP. And you don't need to be any PhD. You don't need to study coding for 3 years. I mean, I can teach you digital marketing in 4 months. And you can be servicing in your little town the Toyota dealer of a small town in Nigeria. And I'm going to help you to bring you leads and customers. You can be servicing a large supermarket. You can be servicing a large client like Citibank sitting out of Myanmar. I believe in this new force of people being educated without taking 10 years for them to get into the labor market.
Okay, so that's interesting. You can teach somebody to be a digital marketer in 4 months. Most of us, however, work for small businesses. How do we take 4 months out to take one of your courses?
Well, first of all, we're giving these courses for free, so it's not a cost for you. Second is you can do it on your own time. So if you can take it live, you take it live. If you want to take it at night when you arrive home, you can do it at home.
Okay.
I have people in Nigeria from a cell phone connected. But one important thing, I was the Prime Minister of Sierra Leone, and I was talking to him about this. He told me, Gaston, I have another problem. Can you help me with irrigation system for access to clean water? I don't have time to talk about digital certification. I have other necessities. Clean water. So we need to pick our battles well. It's not one size fits all.
But when it comes to lifelong learning, I think governments do have a role to play. Work in mature welfare states, we can work our tax systems and things like that to stimulate companies and individuals to engage in lifelong learning. It's absolutely necessary, I think, for sure.
Talk a little bit, Donald, about what you think is important. I want to bring up this idea of the fact that, the OECD estimates that 1 in 10 jobs are at high risk of being automated. You talked about the digitalization. For another 25%, the tasks will significantly change because of automation, and that's hundreds of millions of jobs, right? So standing still in terms of skills is going to mean steady erosion of work opportunities. And we've heard about some of the options, some of what we need. We need people to keep learning. We need the government to help. From your view, from what you see in China, what do you think is important?
We believe in partnership and empowering. Empower others and all the partners, because we do not do, we put an ecosystem together, we work with them. So in China, it's more of a functional jobs that we make it more efficient, so it becomes more stable jobs. The factories can have better return and they continue, and then those are more comfortable jobs with higher wages that way. So, and then we try to replicate in other places, in Brazil, in Turkey, and other places. So that's one way of doing it. The other thing that we see a lot of opportunities lies in the creative jobs. Our company is successful because it's on demand. We outsource the design job to the consumers. The consumers have their own self-expression of fashion, and they don't want to follow others. So each consumer or each group of consumer, they have all these creative ideas, and then we take it and we manufacture on demand, bespoke. So in that sense, that we have an incubator program in the last 2 years for 3,000 individual designers. Give them the platform and give them the give them all the manufacturing things, right? All the payment and get them going. So give them the capital to get going. So they have been very successful. We wanted to do more of that. And that's something, the design part, artist part, don't believe AI can really replace that. Yep. Because AI doesn't have vulnerability, doesn't have weakness. You need those kind of weakness to overcome and to create the things that everybody enjoys, appreciates, especially yourself. So that we see huge amount of opportunities going forward.
If I just may, I think the fallacy is to see the labor market as something static. There's a set number of jobs and they all look like this. That's not the case. It's always changing. I mean, who would have thought that digital marketing was a job just 10, 15, 20 years ago? It didn't exist. And that's exactly what happened to these farmers, 98% going down to 2-3% of the labor force, being replaced doing other stuff. They just didn't end up being unemployed because there were new jobs created in the labor market. And this is exactly what's going to happen this time around as well. And these gentlemen are a part of making that happen.
Yeah, I think if you need a job, you need to go to one of these two folks. But there is a school of thought that says that we are going to so soon digitize, automate, computerize the world that we won't have enough jobs to go around. So I wonder, Josh, if you believe this, and if you think that universal basic income or any one of the ideas like that is an option.
I don't believe it. I don't know enough at the moment to have a good reason to believe it. I think that things are changing very quickly. I think we see that. But also, I think if you look at employment numbers and job stats, people can't find jobs. People can't hire fast enough. So I think there will be a shift in skills, and I think what is valued will be viewed differently. I think there'll be a lot less faff, and I think you'll see organizations having to become more efficient because you risk being replaced by a bot, which wasn't the case 20 years ago. And so I don't think that's the case yet, but ask me again in a few
All right,
weeks.
I've got to give you the last word because we're out of time. What
Like
thoughts?
the rest of the
Wrapping
folks
up.
on the panel, we're pretty optimistic. This is a glass half full group here, and we think human ingenuity has got a place to play alongside the extraordinary technological innovation that is happening. And I think if there's a courageous way forward with the public sector, financial institutions like Citi, and citizens of the world taking advantage and leveraging this opportunity, if we provide a foundation for economic growth, the people will find the jobs that will change their
Look
lives.
at Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia has just, in the last few years, liberated the female part of the workforce, basically doubling the size of the workforce.
Yep.
And hundreds of thousands of jobs have been created in Saudi Arabia in the last couple of years. It's just amazing.
Okay.
And they did it faster than they thought they would.
All right. Gentlemen, I'm going to have to cut you off. They're going to pull us off with a hook otherwise. But of course, jobs aren't the only thing we need. Our next panel will explore how we can invest in the quality of life as well. So stay right where you are and give these guys a great big round of applause.
Thank you.